Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where holy resuscitation, Batman! Just when you think DC movies are dead, they come roaring back to life. What's David Zaslav to do? That's right, the Discovery merger is now right around the corner. Many of you have your fingers crossed for that. I don't think it's going to go the way you think it is, but I do think that there will be changes. And on that note, DC movies ain't out of the woods yet. We still have several DC movies to go this year, Black Adam, The Flash, and Aquaman 2, and it's their box office that will largely decide the future of the DCEU. Because, sure, the Batman is a huge success, but just like Joker, it's isolated from the rest of the DC franchise. See, a Marvel movie or show does well, it pulls up all the others. And some of you are like, I made a video about this, about who I would cast as Wonder Woman and Superman for Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves as the Batman. And a number of you were like, not every movie franchise has to be interconnected, Grace. Jeez. But you know what? That's where the money is. You're thinking like a fan, like a connoisseur, not like the person who needs to not only bring in money, but has shareholders. Warner Brothers, Warner Discovery, I believe, will be on the stock market. And the MCU, it's important to note, is the most successful global franchise of all time, more than doubling what Star Wars has brought in far less time. Star Wars started in 1977. Marvel started, Marvel is a lot more prolific, but Marvel is just a machine. They're a printing money machine, basically. And I think there's no reason that Warner Brothers shouldn't have one, considering how Marvel and DC have been so competitive on the same level in the comic book space. Many MCU movies and every recent Star Wars movie except for Solo have hit $1 billion. But DC, only Aquaman and Joker have been able to do that recently. I am sure that David Zaslav wants DC and Harry Potter to be his Marvel and Star Wars. And there's no reason that they shouldn't be, and it's pretty obvious that right now they are not. Will the Batman hit $1 billion like the Joker? It has opened considerably higher. Isn't that cool? And while sure, Spider-Man No Way Home opened more than twice as big, I mean, that was a very special kind of movie. But 120, which is what the Batman is opened with, is very strong, not just for DC movies at any time, forget the fact that we're in a pandemic, but it's even on par with many strong Marvel debuts. Was it the extra $1 to $1.50 that AMC charged for each ticket this weekend? Some of you were pretty upset about this, but you know what? I think you're just upset about the idea of it. The reality is that for a premium blockbuster that's 3 hours long, that's such a slight price increase. I don't think it's a big ask. Was it on the premium screens? I wonder if it was just for the regular screens, because premium screens already have a price increase. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, who created blockbuster-centric Hollywood, so they have a lot of nerve whenever they complain about it, predicted fluctuating ticket prices a decade ago. But as movie theaters fight their own kind of churn, remember people used to go to the movies 2 to 3 times every weekend? I did when I was growing up, and I don't think people do that as much anymore, particularly because streaming is so competitive. And also, I think movie theaters need to work on the quality of the experience. But anyway, it makes sense. I think it makes sense. And I urge you not to think so much about how much more you'll be charged for a blockbuster, but how much less you might be charged to see a smaller film. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day, about the fact that Hollywood doesn't really make small movies anymore for the big screen. And that's kind of sad, considering some of the iconic classics that have been released. So if this is a way to make studios still make smaller films for the theatrical model, I think that would be really wonderful. As for the Batman's long-term box office prospects, the real test will be this week. Not next weekend, but this week, leading up to next weekend. As Joker did big weekday business its first week, hitting almost, by the end of its second weekend, which was a holiday weekend, hitting almost about 200 million at that point. That means in a week, it made 100 million. So even though the Batman opened bigger, it really needs to hit 200 by the end of this coming weekend. That's amazing. We'll see if the Batman can keep up or even outpace Joker. Word of mouth is stellar. Not a lot of heat going into this movie. I think this was a case where Warner Brothers publicity did a really great job having word of mouth be an explosion when the review embargo lifted on Monday. And then they had the fan screenings the next day. The hype just never stopped building. And empty theaters, last week's movie math, I was showing you empty theaters. Throughout the weekend, they would quickly fill up as people were like, maybe I should see this thing. Not only people being won over, but many fans seeing the Batman multiple times in the single opening weekend. Oh, how many times do you think you'll see it overall? I can't wait to go again. The Batman is poised for terrific repeat business and for others to be won over by the hype a little more slowly, with no big movies hitting multiplexes until The Lost City on March 25th. Can you believe that? That means the Batman will have all the premium theaters to itself for 3 weeks. The summer schedule is a little bit more stacked. You're going to have more movies coming out the way it used to be. But The Batman was one of the few films not to vacate the spring corridor, and they therefore have it all to themselves. That's incredible. The Batman also has lots of room to grow with its audience, as the opening weekend was a whopping 67% male, which means Matt Reeves needs to work on increasing female appeal going forward. Poison Ivy. You would think, Zoe Kravitz was so good as Catwoman, but I think she wasn't a big part of the campaign. And her role, while very good in the movie, she's not, I think, in any way a lead character. Also, the audience was very diverse, showing broad appeal in that regard, which is great, and Warner Brothers has once again benefited from a diverse cast that reflects audiences. The only wrinkle is that 45-day window for HBO Max, but the film is so hot, we're going to compare it to Spider-Man No Way Home when we get to the rest of the box office for the weekend. But the film is so hot, I think a lot of fans will just watch it on a loop, see it a bunch of times in theaters, and then keep watching it on HBO Max. I'm excited, we're going to have a watch along. And others, I think, will likely venture out to see the Batman in theaters anyway, as COVID rates across the country drop lower and lower, the weather gets better and better, people are going to want to go to the movies. And because Hollywood, Warner Brothers was the only one who decided to stick to the space again, the Batman is pretty much their only option. Overseas box office is also crucial, as Joker made almost 70% of its $1 billion outside North America. It's worth noting that Joker made $30 million in Russia. It didn't get that much over $1 billion. But the Batman, of course, won't be releasing there as well as many other Hollywood movies, as the world tries to come up with ways to pressure Russia to leave the Ukraine outside of military force. And everyone's trying to do their part, including Hollywood. Joker did, although as much as I think people would like to see a movie in Russia, I think Putin's pretty scary. So I don't, it's a really bad situation. Joker did big business across Europe, across the entire Europe. But with the Russia-Ukraine war, plus the humanitarian crisis rippling out across Europe, one has to wonder if that will have a toll on the Batman's box office. I mean, at the end of the day, who cares? That's obviously much more serious, but this is a box office discussion. But The Dark Knight actually had a much better domestic overseas split, and after No Way Home has come close to $800 million, and with, again, no competition for 3 weeks, the Batman might be able to balance out any deficit in overseas box office with more robust numbers in North America and perhaps other parts of the globe as well. I think it has a very good shot of getting to $1 billion, to be honest with you. Those are questions that will be answered soon, but right now, I think Warner Brothers can bask in yet another one of those great moments that makes them feel they are on the right track, and they don't need to take a closer look at their film business model, even though they have way more low points. It's true, it's true. Every time Warner Brothers is like, man, maybe we should make some changes, a big hit comes along, and they're like, no, we know what we're doing, and you're like, other studios have more consistent big hits. I mean, I'm very curious to see what kind of, if at all, I'm very curious to see what David Zaslav does, in particular with the film division. But it's also great to see Warner Brothers competitive at the box office again. They've been leaving it all up to Disney and Universal. All the studios, Sony's coming off of a great run, even Paramount, but now Warner Brothers is back in here, right? After a year of day and date releases, which proved to be just as bad an idea as all the talent said that it would when it was announced by Jason Kilar. It did little to boost HBO Max's subscription numbers, as we're still not really getting any updates as to how they're doing, and they are still unwilling to compete in the weekly Nielsen charts with all the other streaming services, which to me is the weirdest thing. I mean, we know that people watch the HBO and HBO Max shows. They dominate on social media. Why aren't they in this list? It's crazy to me. I mean, I guess HBO has a different release model, but other places are going to weekly things as well. And HBO Max does offer you the chance to watch the previous seasons. So I would think like something like Euphoria would be very competitive on that list. And, supposedly Peacemaker. So let's get those shows in here to see how they're actually doing. All right, as for the rest of the top 10, even with the Batman storming the multiplex, Uncharted held up nicely in its third weekend and crossed the century mark. I think at the rate it's going, the video game adaptation could end its domestic run with about 115 to 120, tying with other pandemic theaters-only hits like Free Guy and Ghostbusters Afterlife. And again, just like those movies, I think it will then go on to do boffo business on digital. Digital release, and because it's Sony, it'll go to digital release and then it'll hit streaming services. Netflix first. Heck, even Spider-Man No Way Home still held up very well in its 12th weekend. Now here's your comparison. The Batman will hit HBO Max at no extra cost after just 7 weekends, while Spider-Man No Way Home will hit digital, not even a streaming service. It'll hit for digital sale after 14 weekends. So that's double the theatrical window. That's potentially a lot of money that the Batman will be leaving on the table. It better boost those HBO Max subscription models to make that subscription numbers to make that worth it. Speaking of streaming, let's head on over there. And as always, we start with Nielsen. For the first week of February, Ozark, with 4 seasons, continued to dominate. Remember, they count all the seasons over on Nielsen. But Amazon clearly has a huge hit with Reacher, which surged to second place in its debut with only a single season under its belt. Alan Ritchson, I've told you, he's going places. This is it. I cast him as a potential Superman in my Wonder Woman Superman video. I think, I really liked him on... He comes from Hunger Games. He's been around a while. I thought he was a good Hawk on Titans. I thought, at first I was like, but then he really won me over. And I think that he's going to get some. He's going to get some movie. Someone's going to hire him. Meanwhile, and he's going to make more Reacher. Meanwhile, the Book of Boba Fett, even with its eye-popping, nostalgia-rific Mando season 2.56 episode, it actually dropped to 7th place that week. That's the lowest rating it's had in the top 10 to date. That's incredible and scary to me. I mean, are people not watching the previous episodes? Is that what the problem is? I mean, let's see what happens with the next Star Wars Disney Plus show, Obi-Wan, but that is very disconcerting in terms of the Star Wars brand. Warner Brothers is like, see, that not everybody has it together either. Leave us alone. All right, as for movies, Encanto is still number 1. Not just still number 1, but by a long shot. All the other movies are in its dust. And Netflix's The Tinder Swindler only debuted at number 4, but maybe it'll pick up thanks to word of mouth on next week's chart because it's doing very well on Netflix. All right, speaking of Netflix, let's head over there to their own charts. They're just, again, a week behind, and it looks like it's the beginning of a beautiful partnership for Netflix and Tyler Perry, as his new Medea movie, exclusive to the streaming service, is a strong number 1 debut. While there's The Tinder Swindler right behind it, still at the top of the charts, and its fourth week of release. As for shows, Inventing Anna is still number 1. Shonda Rhimes, one of Netflix's first beautiful partnerships. I think she actually was their first. While Vikings Valhalla debuted right behind it. Space Force, shockingly renewed for a second season after a very bad reception from critics and viewers alike, although I really enjoyed it. Its second season debuted down there at number 8, as you can see, which is, in season 1 didn't even get put into the top 10 as well. On Netflix, we've consistently seen previous seasons pop into the top 10 as well, with people trying to catch up, and join in later. So I think a third season is very unlikely. I thought season 2 was okay, but after the end of I would be fine if they ended it now, quite frankly. I enjoyed season 2, but I don't think I really need any more. Over on iTunes, even though Scream just debuted on digital, for some reason Sing 2 beat it out as it went back to number 1. It's not even available to rent yet. It's still a digital purchase, and it's still in theaters, but yet here it is at number 1. Otherwise, awards contenders fill up most of the top 10, the rest of the top 10, as awards season heats up. We just had the SAG Awards, and the Oscars, of course, are right around the corner for March 27th. All right, as for this coming weekend, as I said, not a single major film enters the marketplace. A real gift, not just to the Batman, mostly to the Batman, but for other movies at the multiplex as well. Uncharted, Spider-Man No Way Home, it still has 2 weeks before it hits digital. Even Dog, I think those movies will pick up some money too. There should be an amazing hold for Batman next weekend. I'm excited to see what it is, but again, we got to pay attention to how it does during the week. That's also crucial. But also, even though there's not a lot of competition at the multiplex, that doesn't mean there isn't some strong competition for your time, thanks to streaming. Turning Red was supposed to hit the multiplex, but instead Disney decided, infamously at this point if you're a Pixar fan, to send it exclusively to their streaming service at no extra cost this Friday. The review embargo lifts tomorrow morning. I don't know if I'm trying to find out if we're waiting on Obi-Wan and Thor trailers, but with the Turning Red embargo lifting, the review embargo lifting at 9 a.m., there could be a trailer later in the day. Let's see, I'm still trying to find out. But the embargo lifts tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's Pixar, but it's surprisingly edgy. This is a real gamble for Pixar. But hey, sometimes when you gamble, you win big. Just ask Warner Brothers. And it'll be interesting to see as we watch the reaction to the film from critics, audiences, and social media if Disney maybe should have kept it as a theatrical release or if streaming actually was the right play. And Netflix has The Adam Project, which looks a heck of a lot like a theatrical release. It's crazy to me that's debuting on a streaming service, but it is this Friday. They haven't even sent screeners out to most people yet. I'm not sure when the embargo is going to lift for that, which is a little surprising considering, again, how professional and slick the trailers are. As for shows, tonight, Adam McKay's Winning Time about the history of the Lakers debuts on HBO. Not HBO Max. This is HBO proper. It seems like an HBO Max series, right? But no, this is the coveted Sunday night HBO show. So let's see how that does. And on Tuesday, network TV tries to get back into the conversation. Hey guys, we're still here too. With NBC's The Thing About Pam starting, a true crime dramedy starring Renee Zellweger in heavy prosthetics. I know some people have had problems with that. Instead of casting, different actresses. But Renee Zellweger so far hasn't gotten any blowback on this, but perhaps it's because no one's paying attention. Peacock drops the entire season of Bust Down on Thursday, while Apple TV debuts the first 2 episodes of The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray on Friday. And huzzah! Upload finally returns on Friday as well, with Amazon giving us the entire 2nd season. It's so good. I see people reporting that it's only 7 episodes, and that's how many they've released to press, but it ended abruptly and did not seem to have an ending, so I believe there are probably more than 7 episodes. There better be. Well, that's going to be a really annoying ending. But up till that point, amazing. Such a good show. Back to Netflix, who's had tremendous success with content from Asia. They're doing something very unique now, a Japanese talk show / comedy competition dropping on Tuesday, which Netflix is describing as the Squid Game of comedians. So that's very interesting. And then on Wednesday, Ryan Murphy docuseries, The Andy Warhol Diaries. Andy Warhol, iconic artist, and it's nice to see Ryan Murphy, for all the pulp that he churns out, balancing it with something historical like that. I think that's great. And now it's time for the return of the Movie Math Ticket Montage. It's been so long, but just long enough. I think I could tell from your photos that I think you all feel really good about being back at the movies. And it was so great to see so many of you again, looking fabulous and having a wonderful time at the movies. I loved seeing your enthusiasm, not just for the Batman, but for being at the multiplex. Truly a magical experience when nobody messes it up. You know what I'm talking about. But your photos are just wonderful. I loved looking at all of them, and now all of you can feel that same glow as well. It's pretty darn special.